Good morning, folks. What's up? It's coffee time. I've barely had any, so I'm slow and my voice is deep. Slow start. Wait for the coffee to kick in. Hopefully, I solved all my internet issues and won't have any of those this week. Looks like I have a pretty fast download and upload internet speed now, so hopefully it's all good. Anyway, who's here? Oh, Tenerife. Tenerife. Is that in the, that's Pedro in Tenerife. Isn't that the Canary Islands? I've been there. That's like 3 hours out in the Atlantic, but back from Europe. Is that right? Tenerife. Wow, amazing. It's been a long time, but I did have a good time out there. How you guys doing? Denmark. How was Denmark? Well, it was great. I guess I'd just gotten back last week when I had my sort of aborted live stream, and then I did another little one later on that day. But anyway, it was great. We had a great time. Videos are going to start to come out this week that we shot out there. We had a lot of fun. We just did a bunch of tone prints for the TC pedals. And we also kind of made a pedal board and put it together. And then I think they're going to be announcing that they're going to give away that pedal board that we made. So it's a cool little like pedal train pedal board with like 7 or 8 pedals on it. So check out the TC social media for that. It was cool. We just like, well, what would you do if you had to put together your first pedal board and could maybe have 7 pedals on it or something? We put together this little board. So pretty cool. It was fun. And I got to crank their AC30 and GMP Marshall. Made videos of that. Tanner says, "What kind of coffee am I drinking?" I'm drinking. What have I got today? Is it Stumptown? No, it's not Stumptown. It's Groundworks. Groundworks coffee. All right. So let's see. Good evening from our house. Aarhus. I can't say it right. I know I can't, but that's the place I was in Denmark. What's up? Beautiful town you have there with amazing food. I will always remember. Thinking about running the new Rev G3 pedal into an Axe FX3. Should I run it in front or in a loop? Definitely in front. I have one of those sitting right here. Oh, let's see. There it is. You guessed it. I'm supposed to make a video. I have to get on it. Part of the problem is there's just not enough time in the day. Like, I have this pedal here. I'll have to unplug it to show you. It's the Origin Revival Drive. There it is. And, you know, take a look at it. Look at all the knobs, switches, some down there. So it's daunting. It looks amazing, and I really wanted to get into it sooner, actually. But I just looked at it, and I was like, "That's going to take a while to figure out." So they have a series of videos that explain every single feature and stuff. And I just decided yesterday, all right, today's the day. I got to get into this. I got to get this done. They've been waiting for their video, so I dove in. But it took me, you know, like 4 hours of sitting there watching videos and stuff to kind of and figuring it out with my amps. And the amazing thing about this pedal is what they really designed it to do was to be like an amp style overdrive, and work into basically any kind of amp. So it'll work into a power amp, like a flat power amp. There's a switch here that says power amp. It'll also work into a blackface Fender. It'll work into more like a Marshall style amp. And then there's a bunch of fine-tuning controls that allow you to do things like fine-tune bright cap response and stuff like that. So you can basically tune it in to get your tone on just about any amplifier. So it's kind of like the fly date dream, you know? And it really does sound great. The overdrive in it is really cool, and it's got some really... this side is... Basically, these sides are duplicated, but there's a silicone rectifier style drive. I think, you know, like Marshall Plexi or something, or I guess, you know, Fender Blackface Bassman or something. And then there's the tube rectifier side over here. Think more like JTM 45 or something. And they just have a slightly different response, obviously. But it's kind of like having 2 amps in one, and then you can foot switch between them. And there's a mid boost in it. It's a really great sounding pedal, but it took me the better part of yesterday to figure it out. So when you do that, and then you've got all these other pedals, and then, not to mention just starting to make a video, like write a song, produce a track, and it's just time consuming. And there's only one guy here, and that's me. So I think sometimes folks, they're like, "Where's our video?" or whatever, and it's like, I'm sorry. It's like there's I've got literally like 5 or 6 overdrives here, and each one sort of represents 2 or 3 days of work, and there's just no way around it because there's only one guy doing it. So anyway, just takes time, but and it's a quality problem. It's not even really a problem. It's just sort of the way it is. Revival Drive, though, what a great sounding pedal. It is really terrific, and I look forward to trying the Rev. Okay, that was my early morning dissertation. Ever jam any smooth jazz for fun? Never. I haven't. Not that I have an issue with smooth jazz. Greetings from Bangladesh. What's up? 1 a.m. in Bangladesh. That's cool, man. I've never been there. Never been to Bangladesh. Would love to go sometime. And Henrik says he's been to Aarhus, and he loves it. He's from Sweden. I dig Sweden, too. Been to Stockholm and a couple, I think it was in Groningen or something. Yeah. It's been 10 years, though. Toronto's here. And I just lost my place in the chat. Let me just find out where I was here. Backing up, got about 187 people online. That's pretty good. Belgium. What's up, Belgium? Robert from Belgium. Jimmy from Indiana. Okay. So I use my camera's mic to record my demo videos and my DAW to record the clips. And then mix them together in Final Cut. Basically, that's from Vincent. Yeah, essentially. Sometimes I use my camera's mic these days because it's so much easier, but other times I'll record a audio track of my voice like I am right now through this mic. That's a mic sitting on the desk here, so I'll use a quality large diaphragm condenser mic that you guys can't see because it's off the camera or whatever, and I just kind of EQ that and compress it, and then that's what my voice is coming through. But otherwise, yeah, exactly. That's how I do it. Okay, Germany here in Norway. So many people in Europe. It's awesome. Have I tried the Big Sky by Strymon? Yes, I've never owned that pedal, but I've used it on a few things. There's been one around a few times where I've needed a reverb, and I've been like, oh, I'll just plug that thing in and try it, and it's always killer. I kind of wish I had one. It's great. I have a lot of reverb pedals, like other options, but you can never have too many, I guess. So, it's great. All the Strymon. I've never tried a Strymon pedal I didn't like, to be honest. Did you see any of the induction people have streamed? They did a lovely tribute to Chris. No, I haven't seen that. Actually, that's from Jennifer. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I guess. No, I haven't seen it. Is it compulsory to get a koi tattoo when visiting Japan? I would say not. The only problem with tattoos in Japan is if you get tattoos, you can't go in the onsen, which is the hot springs. They have they're like the public, public. I don't know. I mean, it's like different hot springs that you can go to, but you're going in there with a bunch of people, and you can't go in if you have tattoos. They're really hardcore about that. It's just got something to do with Yakuza, and the organized crime, and those guys having tattoos and stuff, and so they outlawed it. So if you get tattoos, there ain't no going in the hot springs, and the hot springs are nice. You can still go to a private one. You go to like private onsen. That's cool, but you just can't go in the public ones. Little cultural, interesting trivia there for you. How am I powering my H9 since it requires 500 milliamps and the Friedman power supplies put out 350? They work fine, is the short story. I don't want to give you advice, about if you think it's underrated or whatever, but the reality is they work fine with the Friedman supplies and what they supply, and I've run them for many, 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 many hours at a time, and I've never had one fail or anything like that or not work. So generally when manufacturing milliamp rating is good to know. There are many times they sort of over spec what is needed. So, many times if somebody says it needs 400, it really only needs 300, that kind of thing. I've found that often. And you never really know unless you sort of try or measure. And so I'm pretty sure, I don't think there's any mods or anything done to my Friedman supplies in order to power the H9s. I would have to ask Dave, and if you could always hit him up and ask him if it'll work, but he'll give you the straight sort of answer on that. But long story short, I believe they just work fine, and that they've just overspec'd what is actually necessary. Can you put two V30s and two 20? You're saying this is from the Fossil 76. You're saying can you put two V30s, 60 dB each? I think what you're saying is 60 watts each, right? And two 20 watt speakers into a 412 cabinet. It doesn't really work that way. You have to consider that the power will be evenly distributed to all four speakers. So if you put a speaker that only handles 20 watts in a 412, even if the other ones will all handle, say, 75 watts each, that 20 watt speaker is still going to get stressed at the same level as the other ones. So generally speaking, you want to, make sure that all the speakers can, that it's going to be an even distribution of power to each of the speakers. Just know that. So that 20 watt speaker is going to be getting a full force 25 or 30 watts from a 100 watt head, basically, if you're cranking it in a healthy, to a healthy volume. Jim from Scumbag used to say that you should, the original spec for a 100 watt Marshall was two 412s. So they had the two greenback loaded 412s or whatever that would handle spec'd around 100 watts each. You were supposed to use two cabinets with those 100 watt heads. And then the 50 watt heads would be like one cabinet. And that was kind of how what Marshall's intention was, I think. Whether or not you really need to do that, the Celestion guys have told me basically, like, our speakers are fine, like, up to, you don't have to worry about it. If you've got four greenbacks, you can run 100 watts into those four greenbacks and you're cool. I've been told that by Celestion. Jim from Scumbag, his thing was always to at least, come as close to doubling the power. So in other words, that would be the two 412s. So who knows, He'd say if you want to be safe and not blow speakers, you should make sure you have double the power handling beyond what your amplifier power rating is. So, yeah, we got somebody from Poland here. That's cool. What would be nice, this is from Jerome, what would be nice would be a blank tone print pedal, and then you could choose if you want delay, mod, or reverb in it. Well, here's an interesting thing, actually, that I learned at TC, is that, for instance, many of the mod pedals can be any of the other mod pedals. So I don't quite understand it, but it's like, basically, you can turn the flanger into the chorus, or the chorus into the flanger. So the Corona can be the Vortex, I believe is what the flanger is called. You can actually do that on those pedals because they all have a modulation section built in. The Vibe, for instance, can also be a chorus because the Vibe has a full modulation section built in with, you can pick the sine wave, triangle wave, square wave, all those different So you can also add the chorus to the vibe, which is one of the tone prints we made while I was there. But anyway, I digress. So basically, you can turn any one of those pedals into the other pedal because they do share the same sort of engine or whatever. So Tor told me that, and you could hit up TC for more info on that. But by utilizing the editor and getting into the deep editing, you can actually make your own tone prints and turn one into the other. And I think TC even might have some tone prints like that, like chorus for the flange or etc. That's a good thing to know. Let's see. As far as delay, reverb, mod, yeah, I don't have anything like that yet. But maybe sometime soon, they'll make something like that. Would seem like a natural, right? Like you're absolutely right. I would say. Glenn says hello from Dallas. What am I working on? Just a bunch of videos as well as finishing my record up. So yeah, a little bit of news, which is kind of exciting. I might as well tell it now. I started on a track that was kind of like an experimental track that my friend Blair did drums for, and he created this drum track. It's just a stereo track of him playing, but it sounds like crazy program drums kind of. It's real sounds, but it's him. He's playing acoustic drums, but then he goes in and chops it up and does things to them with using plugins and distortion and stuff. And so he made this really cool experimental kind of drum track for me. And then I wrote a track to it, and it ended up being one of my favorite tracks on the record. It's just really fun, but really unique, and for an instrumental guitar song, I think it's really, really cool. But Mark Lettieri's going to play a solo on it, so I'm really, really excited about that because he's so badass and such a great guy, super funky. And the song's kind of, it's sort of funky, and I just think especially the spot where he's going to come in, it's going to be like really cool. So I haven't heard what he's going to do yet, but he was going to do it over the weekend. So it's shaping up to have some great guests on it, this record. I mean, Tim Pierce is on there, and Laurie Basilio, and now Mark. So it's really, really, I'm honored. And Steve Stevens, too, playing bass and programming and stuff. And some great drummer friends of mine. Who knows who else I can rope in the next couple of weeks to get on there. I wanted to get Ariana Powell as well. So we'll see what I can accomplish. Yeah, I think actually, I'm glad we just talked about this, and then I remembered. In a week or so, I think she's supposed to come in and maybe play. Let's see. Judd says he only plays at home. Are the Boss GE7 pedals any good? Is it worth me getting an equalizer? The GE7 is just an EQ, right? It's a great all-purpose EQ if you're looking for a pedal EQ. I don't know if it's worth it or not. Probably not. If you're just playing at home. Generally, I think of the GE7 as like you can boost with that pedal, and it's great. Like it's got that big 10 dB or whatever level slider in there, and you can boost it up, and then just EQ your tone and kind of kick the front end of an amp and use it as a cool boost. So that's cool. But I think of it as kind of like a sort of a jack of all trades EQ / boost. Let's see here. Lando says, use CD Baby like you have in the past to release a song. Who did you go through for the Dirty Town single? I did it with DistroKid. DistroKid.com. Check that out. Really cool service that is great because you pay, I believe it's $20 a year, and you can release as much music as you want throughout the year on DistroKid for that $20. So you could write 500 songs. On CD Baby, it's like $39.95 a single, I think, and maybe $50 per album, which is fine, but every time you put out a song, you got to pay that money. Whereas with DistroKid, $20, and then you can just literally put out as much music as you want all year. So this is a different way of doing it. But I like CD Baby, and I will probably put physical CDs out through CD Baby this time as well. It went well, and it's worked well for Guitar Nerd. I have to restock actually some CDs with them. They've been out of stock for a while, Guitar Nerd. So I'm remembering I got to do that too. Anyway, Joshua's excited about the Marshall Origin. those amps look pretty cool at NAMM. I don't know if I was really crazy about the videos they made for them, but that's just me being picky. Almost time for coffee refill. Let's see. Barrie, Ontario, what's up? It's George. Wondering what rig I was using at the Chris Cornell set at Soundcheck Live 39. So I got together with some friends. This was before Chris passed away. I did a show in December of 2016 where myself and Jason Sutter and Corey McCormick and my friend Dave Feldstein got together at Lucky Strike, and the video's on YouTube. It turned out pretty good, I think. It sounds good, and did it for, you know, just kind of throwing it together. I was pretty happy with the way it came out, actually. But so anyway, if you search for, you know, Chris Cornell Soundcheck Lucky Strike, because that's where it's held, you could find that video. I used a PT100 head, and I used my Helix pedal board for that gig. So I programmed up the Helix for the set. It was like 8 tunes, something like that, and made all the sounds and stuff. And I ran it 4-cable method, and it worked great. It worked just great. I did one other show with it too, like that. It was really cool. Do I have a recommendation for a simple, subtle reverb pedal? Just want to take the dry edge off, not sound like Dick Dale. Like just for a bit of verb. Well, just, you know, you can pretty much use just about anything for that, man. I mean, maybe like a Hall of Fame. You get a Hall of Fame Mini and find a tone print you like, and it's got one knob. That's it. That's a mini pedal. Sound great. You know, that'd be cool. Do I have anything else here? I have an ethereal here, Wampler, but that's more like a dramatic kind of reverb. The MXR M300 I really love. That would be good too. Good choice. MXR M300. Simple. Just use a room reverb and just, you know, keep the decay kind of short and just blend it in a little. Glenn Miller says looks complicated. Yeah, I guess you're talking about the Origin, the Revival Drive. It is complicated. It's not uncomplicated. It's complicated, but it's cool. It sounds great. I mean, it does that amp, you know, like you want it to sound like a Plexi. It sounds like a Plexi. It sounds really, really, really good. And then he's kind of designed it to do like cranked Fender sounds and stuff, which I guess changes up the circuitry. So when this preamp control here, there's kind of a neutral preamp and then Fender style and Marshall style, like that. And then you can do, of course, the tube rectifier or solid state rectifier, and then there's a bright cap. You can switch it out or have American style bright cap or British style, more aggressive. And there's even a controller for ghost notes. So you can add in some of that low transformer ghost noting stuff that old amps used to do. And it's pretty cool. It definitely lends some ampish, you know, you get this low kind of undertone to single notes as you move up the neck. It's pretty cool. You can blend in dry signal. And then the presence control is really interesting. It's actually a negative feedback / presence control. So you can add presence, or in the center detent, it's like kind of, in the center detent, it's kind of like a 68 plexi, like with a bit of presence, and you can turn up the presence, turn it counterclockwise, and now it's like having an amp with no negative feedback when it's all the way counterclockwise. So more like an AC30. It's open and bolder and just kind of on all the time. Doesn't really clean up as much with your pick attack. It's just like really like an open sound. Anyway, it's technical jargon, but there's a lot of tones in there. But I did find some great sounds yesterday with it. So I'm gonna start making that video today and hopefully get it up on Wednesday or something. Ola England had the rev pedal in the loop and it sounds killer, says Robert. So you can take distortion pedals and run them in loops of amps, like into the return of an amp, and it sort of, then it acts like the front end, you know, it's the preamp at that point. All the tone shaping happens with the pedal. It's one way to go. I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to do that with this pedal, I'm not sure. Here's the rev pedal. Aggression, blue, red, off. Bass, middle, treble. Volume, gain, aggression. Anyway, video for this coming as well very soon. As soon as I have enough hours in the day to finish all this stuff. But this week, I would say, I'll get it done. Have I tried the Landau DeVille? No, I haven't. I would like to get one though, actually. Be cool to have as like a pedal platform amp for videos and stuff. Revival Drive, this is from Oscillation Overdrive. Is the Revival Drive the Allman Brothers sound? I didn't realize until I watched the Origin videos, but the designer, Simon, he's a big Allman Brothers fan, so I would say yes, he probably had some of that in mind. He references Allman Brothers quite a bit when he's talking about the pedal, but it can also be much more aggressive than that. Chris says, way too many knobs for me. There is, and somebody else said that as well. There is a lot of knobs, but you have to think of it like an amp. You know, you could use this like an amp into a power amp, basically. Like it's like the front end. It's like having two amps in one pedal. It's going to be the right thing for some people, and then other people are going to be like, it's too much, you know. And that's just how we are. Everybody's different. Been searching for a Marshall Friedmanish high gain tone for an AC30. I know you can't get the whole package, but is there a pedal I would recommend for it? Well, probably this one. It's not really high gain though, this pedal. It's more like having a plexi or something, but this does a great Marshall. It really sounds like it. Yeah. Barring that, I would say Lagrange is great as an all-round kind of plexi through higher gain. It's got a really wide range on it, the Lagrange. Like the Friedman BEOD is more like that, like a modded. It's more akin to what I think of Dave's HBE or something sound. Like it's a high gain sound. Generally speaking, whereas the Lagrange will kind of do like the lower gain through mid-high gain really, really nicely. So that's a couple good ones. Devman says he likes gear. Me too. John is asking about mastering. He remembers me mentioning a third party to master my mixes. So there's two people. Recently, like for Dirty Town, I used a guy in Toronto, and it's a company called Lacquer Channel Mastering, so in Toronto. So if you want to contact them, his name is Noah at Lacquer Channel in Toronto. Did a great job. And there's another fellow named Ross Nyberg who did Guitar Nerd for me, as well as a couple other things, and he's always done a great job. He's in Seattle. Ross Nyberg, NYNBERG. If you wanted to seek him out, he's a Gear Page member, and he contacted me many years ago and said, "Hey, I like your stuff. If you ever want me to master something for you, let me know." And we, struck up a friendship, and he's been just great. So always does a good job. Really, really good job. All right, I'm gonna move down here. 112 for PT100. What would I get for a 112? Well, Sir makes a nice 112 with ports. 112s live is always tough for me. I never really like the sound of them, like when you turn them up too much. They work good in the studio, but I just find they just never really satisfy. So I would say I still haven't found a 112 that sounds great to me. Beyond the ones that I just mentioned, it's like if you want something that sounds really big, I don't know. Honestly, the Bogner worked great for me in the studio, but it's PT100 is real wide, and then you're gonna have that little 112. And what are you gonna do? Put the amp on top? So it'll be weird. It works great though for kind of studio small stuff. Let's see here. Michael's asking about how I would approach soloing over whipping post because it's non-diatonic. You know what? I've never tried that. I would have to investigate, and kind of spend some time with it. I've never tried to play over whipping post, so I have no idea. Sorry, I don't have a great answer. I should listen to it, I guess. And now you got me thinking. I'll do that, and then I'll get back to you. Christopher's saying when he practices and plays, he's often in front of the computer, internet, or TV. He gets distracted and start to look at gear. Yeah, it's real common. Any advice for finding a focus to practice and get better? Well, you have to turn all that stuff off. Close the web browser. It's okay to use the computer, and because I've always got Logic open or something, and I'm running sessions and stuff. But turn stuff off, basically, and just focus. You got to just it really is that simple. Just eliminate all that stuff. Andy Timmons put up a post on Facebook a couple weeks ago saying my favorite new practice place, and he was like, his couch or something, like away from the computer, and he was sort of saying he has the same problem, that distraction thing. It's impossible, right? With the texts coming in and emails and web browsers, and you just get distracted. I got the same problem, by the way. Exactly the same. It works for me if I just turn all that stuff off and then I just tunnel into whatever I'm doing, especially if I'm working on a song and I've got Logic open, I've got the session there, and then I'm just like in there, and like kind of in it, looking at the tracks and I got my gear and my guitar, and I'm in that project. Then I'm still working with the computer, but it's like there's a focus to it where I don't feel like, well, let's see what's on the internet over here. It's like, no, I'm in the something about working with a DAW and getting in the zone. You just kind of get into that program, and works well for me. This is why I end up probably writing songs more than practicing. All right. Let's see here. Lost my place, so I'm trying to find out where I was. Just give me 1 second. And everybody take a sip of coffee. In sync, even you guys in Europe. I know it's late. Drink your coffee. Okay. Looks like Leo's here from Frog Leap. That's awesome. Everybody say hi, Leo. Norway in the house. There he is. Good dude, that Leo. Does good work, that man. Okay, guys, just still trying to figure out where I was in the chat here. I'm not going to go back. Oh, there we go. I found it. Okay. What's my favorite setting on the Phase 95 pedal? Is it 45 or 90? Definitely the 90. And I use it in the script. I think it's at the button for script or whatever, right? And then I kind of have it, I've got it set like at 11 o'clock right now. It's kind of where I leave it most of the time. In the scripty, a little bit softer phase, 90 mode. Robert says, more radar, still can't do. I was going to work on that this week, actually, and try and get back into that and see how the Mac editor is working, because he sent me an update for it, and see if I can get the demo done for the more radar. But I'll just plug in sort of reactive load and the more, and got some sounds going, try and get a track done. I was having issues with the Mac editor. What is my thoughts about the Sur CAB? Is that the Ben is asking, the Sur Cab? I think you're talking about this cab simulator. I think it's great for an analog cab simulator. It's really good. My preference is definitely, I still like IRs, but the Sur works great because it's just one box with a few knobs to turn on it. So there's a simplicity to it. That's awesome. Yeah. So, and then there's Holly Henderson. What's up, Miss Woo Woo? Mark Paradise says, wiring a Friedman board as he watches this. Do I skip the buffered input if you're using a wireless? You can. It doesn't really matter, but what happens if maybe you want to plug in a cable? Like say your wireless battery goes dead on a show or something. You're like, oh no, I need to plug in a cable. Now you've wired without the buffer in the front, and you've got a 20-foot cable, and your tone changes, because you've got your amp dialed in for the wireless. So you can still use the buffered input, and it's not going to change the sound. I use the buffered input on mine, and I use a wireless. So yeah, I would just go ahead and use the buffered input. It's fine. Once it's low impedance, it's low impedance, and it's fine. It's not going to change the tone to run the two buffers into one another any more than running two Boss pedals into one another would, having them bypassed, Uh, Alrighty. Moving down here. And somebody says, I hope the work on Holly's album is going well. It is. It's almost done. We'll get it done. She's in LA right now, actually, and we need to finish up. And then I leave it to the powers that be after that and see where she takes it in the world. Any changes on my pedal board? Not right now. Everything's the same. Small diaphragm mic necessary for quality acoustic guitar recordings? No, not necessarily. I use large diaphragm mics sometimes, and plenty of great recordings were done with big ones. The small diaphragm does sound great. There's a clarity to it and almost a cleanliness to the low end. They respond faster. The smaller the diaphragm, it'll respond faster. So there's a real realism or something when you're recording acoustic guitar with it. That's nice. I don't know what it is. It's like, transients or it just seems, generally I think of large diaphragm mics as being more colored and having more sort of fullness to them and being maybe less like accurate to what the acoustic guitar actually sounded like in the room, whereas the small diaphragm mic is like an accurate representation and quite quick transients and just kind of really sounds like the guitar. So I use the large diaphragm ones more for color and the small diaphragm ones more for accuracy, I guess. I spent a lot of time reviewing high-end gear. Would I focus on some lower-end amps such as the new Marshall Origin and DSL series? I wouldn't mind. Nobody asks me to do that. So, know that when I'm making these videos for things, it's because people are approaching me and asking me like, hey, would you want to check out this product and maybe make one of your videos for it? So many times people are like, how come you haven't done a video on the so-and-so, so-and-so? And it's like, well, I'm not going to go out and buy a Marshall Origin to make a video of it. It's just not, it's like when there's 10 other things in line to do that people are actually like kind of contracting me to do. So that's the main thing, is that when you see these things that I'm doing, it's like, some of the videos I make, obviously the ones that are more like the amps and the zone videos and stuff, that's just me coming up with ideas for videos, but I get approached to make these things. So so it would be a thing where if people were interested, and the other thing is I haven't made amp videos, but I wouldn't mind doing some lower end, like practice amps. That could be kind of cool, actually, because it's not really, there's no conflict of interest there, I don't think, with something like the Sur amps. If it was like katanas or something, like, try a bunch of modeling amps, Fender Mustangs or whatever, whatever it's called, the little amp that they make, modeling stuff. That could be a cool thing, I guess, if people wanted me to make videos of those things. But they just haven't approached me to do it, honestly. 337 people online, that's not bad. Got a pretty good group here at 40 minutes in. To review more pedals, you could always do some live jam where you turn your cab on like now and just mess with the pedal and jam live for an hour without any particular production or video montage. That's what Phil says. Yeah, I guess. It's kind of my thing, though, is the songs, rather than sitting there and just playing licks, because there's so much of that shit on the internet, and I don't really enjoy it. Like, so why would I go do it, Like, just the noodling. When Tim and I get together, we do that, where we just play through gear and it's off the cuff, and, check out this new pedal or whatever, and we do some of that, and it's cool. There's so much of that. And so the one thing that I do is come up with cool sounding tracks, I feel like, and present the pedal in a real, sort of thought through format where I really spend a little time dialing it in and stuff, and it's not just sort of, blah, there it is, some licks, and turning the knobs and the tones like, I don't know, and then, I don't know, I don't really watch that stuff. When I see it there's just a lot of that, and I'm going to be guilty of doing the same stuff as any other guitar player. I'm just going to play some blues licks or whatever, and it's going to be, I like to spend some time, think it through, and really come up with a part or and something special that makes the thing sound. So I sort of am okay with it takes time to make these videos that I make or whatever, and it's like that's my style or whatever, and it's like that's my thing, you know. I just I think it's better rather than like quality over quantity or whatever, I guess. Is my 510 Goto trem recessed on the PT signature guitar? No, but it's really close to the body. I mean, when it's floating flat, it's like there's this much clearance under the bridge, just barely. You can pull up like a half step or whatever, and that's kind of how Sir generally does them. They have the neck in the cavity as such that they can kind of keep the bridge really low to the body. And they do recess their Floyds and stuff a little bit. I think on some of their guitars they might recess 510s. I'm not sure. Probably on the arch tops. Uh, like arch top standards and stuff. Russia's in the house. What's up? Thank you for being here. Spasiba. Hamilton, Ontario, and wouldn't mind seeing me do a Marshall Origin review. Yeah, I mean, I would consider it if the Sir guys would let me do it. Those amps look cool. I was interested. I saw them at NAMM. Why don't I do a Sunday live where I just play, maybe a live show of the Guitar Nerd record? You always say you never have time to play for yourself. Well, I guess that's a good point. I mean, that's like live streaming a show. I would have to do it with a band and do it right, though. Live stream concert. What's my go-to distortion pedal? Well, on my board right now I have the Ethos. I believe it's called the TWE1, and I have, and it's really a distortion pedal. So I have that. In the past, it's been the Bogner Blue. What else for distortion? The Riot's great. The Riot and the Riot Mini. The other one I tried recently that was terrific was the Little Brute Drive from EWS. I think the company's called. It's a really good one. Let's see. Eric says the Mobius and Ola he didn't like, but he loves his El Cap, Adecco, and Flint. These are Strymon pedals, because I was saying I've never tried one I didn't like. See, I like the Ola, and I love the Mobius. Like, love the Mobius. It's to me, it's just awesome. It's the best all-round modulation pedal still that's, I mean, I use it all the time. I use all kinds of sounds in the Mobius. I use the Univibe, I've used the Ottawa, The least ones I use are probably like the standardless or the chorus and stuff. I use all wacky sounds a lot. I love the lo-fi thing with the warped modulation, where it sounds like a record that's warped, and you could filter it. It's just the coolest thing ever for like coming up with little parts on recordings. So I love the Mobius, and like I say, even the Univibe to me sounds really good. Okay. Jennifer says she has the entire Bon Jovi induction on her Facebook wall set to public. I would actually like to go check that out, because I'd like to see I heard Richie and what's his name, the bass player, Alec John Such. I heard he was there and stuff, so that's cool. It's nice when these bands, they have all their original members, even though Bon Jovi's just really Bon Jovi. But it's nice when they get all the original guys. It was nice to see the Journey one where Perry was there, and there was a lot of good emotion in the room, I felt like. All right, I'm gonna grab another cup of coffee in a second here. You'll talk amongst yourselves for 20 seconds. How would I approach? Oh, that was somebody again asking, soloing over whipping post, Michael. Yeah, I'm not sure, Michael. I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll check it out, and then maybe next week okay, set a reminder. Remind me on Wednesday at noon to check out Whipping Post. There.
Okay, I'll remind you.
No, I'll be ready for next week. That's how I live my life, by the way. If you pick up one tip from this show, if you don't do that, do it. Just tell Siri what to remind you of and when to remind you. As you get older, believe me, it's necessary. Bummer about the tattoos. Yeah, I know it is kind of a bummer. You can't go in we were talking about onsen earlier in Japan. You can't go in the onsen, the hot springs, with tattoos. It's kind of how it is. Do I ever get hung up on your original material because you can pick out the influences while listening to it on playback. No, I don't care at all. That's from Joshua. He's saying, how do you deal with your inner critic? I just don't listen to it. And, unless a song, the only time I would say that that's a problem is if you write a song and then you realize it's exactly or really close to another song. But, like I did Dirty Town, and a lot of people were like, Satch Boogie, or it sounds like Juice by Joe Satriani, which I don't even know how that song sounds actually. But I wore it on my sleeve on that song. I said I was trying to write a song that was kind of like Satch Boogie, that went left in the middle and went somewhere completely different and wasn't blues, and then came back to the blues boogie thing and at the end, because I was influenced by that song. And same thing with Homage. I mean, it was like I want this to sound kind of like Beck or something. So I don't know if it does, but that was my intention. It's fun these days. I mean, to kind of like pay tribute to these people, and I don't really worry about it if it sounds too. I don't think I really sound that much like another player though. Like when it comes to my original songs, I don't really hear. I mean, there's occasional things, but it doesn't really sound. It's not like, oh, I've got my own style, but I don't know. Maybe I do. Like my weird combination of influences, and with the little tracks I write and stuff, as well as the full songs I write, it doesn't sound like other people. I don't think I can confidently say that. John says, where's the line between chasing tone and using what you have and getting best from it? Yeah, I mean, it's really just discipline. You know, it's great to just. Sometimes I think about all this stuff. I went to a guitar store for a minute yesterday because I hadn't been there in years. It was California Guitar on Van Nuys Boulevard. It's a great store, actually. Beautiful shop, vintage and new. And I went in and walked around for a few minutes and looked around, and then I left, And I did see something I liked, but I quickly came to my senses. And because I just have, we've all got too much gear these days. It's like, but anyway, yeah, you just have to kind of realize, like, I got everything I need, and maybe just turn it off sometimes and just play. Gus says, best guitar shop in Tokyo, going there on vacation. Well, it'd be hard to pick one. Hyper Guitars in Shinjuku is an amazing place to visit. And upstairs from Hyper Guitars is, I don't know the name of it, but it's an incredible store that has a lot of, it's like 3 floors and has a lot of Japanese guitars like Tokai and Bernie and stuff like that. A lot of those sort of vintage Japanese as well as vintage American stuff. And there's a lot of pedals in there and stuff. So you'll see it. It's on the upper, 2-3 floors, and then Hyper Guitars is down in the basement. It's a vintage shop that's out of this world. Probably my favorite store in Japan, and it's not big, but I've done a video on it. Is Guitar Traders in Daikanyama. Really amazing. It's not far from Shibuya. It's one subway stop away. And Shibuya's got some great stores like Hartman Vintage, the Ikibe store there, as well as the Ishibashi store, which is amazing. So I would say try and visit Key Music, Grandi Guitar Jungle. It's like all these are like, they're all kind of in the same area in Shibuya. Grandi Guitar Jungle, Key Music's right around the corner. Hartman Vintage. Oh, and Guitar Station and Amp Station are also right across from Hartman Vintage. So just if you go to Shibuya and you put in on your smartphone, if you put in guitar store or guitar shop, they all kind of come up. Or you could have a hotel do a little bit of research for you or something. But they're all in one little area right beside the freeway, kind of. And you can definitely kill some, bunch of hours just right there. But yeah, like I say, the Daikanyama store, Guitar Trader, it's a little bit further away, but it's in a great neighborhood. It's a really cool neighborhood to actually walk around in, and just, it's a little off the beaten path, a little more chill than Shibuya and Shinjuku and all that. Daikanyama is a really nice neighborhood just to visit anyway. But go check it out. It's really cool. It's not a huge store, but they always have an incredible selection, and it's a nice shop too, like aesthetically a nice place to hang out and spend an hour in or something and look at the gear. Let's see. Would I come to Russia with the masterclass? I would love to. Yeah, absolutely. If somebody wanted me to go. Been to Russia once, Moscow and St. Petersburg. Played some gigs there. It was fun. Thoughts on 12 frets to the body acoustic guitars? Don't know much about them. Yeah, I don't know much about them, to tell you the truth. I've never owned one. I've only owned like dreadnoughts and jumbos, really. Let's see here. Have I tried the PRS Tremonti Signature 15 watt? No, not yet, actually. Mark's a really nice guy. I saw him at NAMM and congratulated him on his amp and stuff. And he said, "Oh, I got to get you one to check out and stuff." But I haven't talked to him since then. So he was interested in checking out a PT100 many years ago. Have I ever played the Friedman BE50? I have not, but I've seen it up close. Thoughts on the new V bracing for Taylor? That's a great question. I heard that at NAMM and I was blown away, actually. It's a new type of bracing. So traditionally acoustic guitars have always been X braced, so the under the top is a bracing that looks like that. And these Taylors have this V bracing, and it's a completely different. Most guitars, made by manufacturers, have always been this X bracing, and they decided to try this new way of bracing the top, and it really does sound like all the things they claim. It's not just BS or marketing hype. They claim longer sustain, better intonation, the way that harmonics and chords kind of ring out, and I really did hear it. Like the guitars just sound beautiful, and the chords and voicings and things kind of ring out all the, kind of similar to like when I first tried the Buzz Feet and tuning thing, where it's like, oh my god, the chords are in tune all over the neck, like you get that like first position E, and the third doesn't sound like super weird and out of tune when the rest of the guitar is in tune for other chords. So anyway, there was something to it, and I'd like to get one and check it out closer because I thought that it sounded really terrific. Do I use a voltage regulator on the rotor at home? Yeah, generally, yeah. I have a Furman. It's not a regulator, I guess. It's just a power conditioner. So you're talking about the more like a voltage regulator that holds the. When I'm in Japan, I don't know what they use because they're using I guess step-up transformer for my amps because the amps are American and it's 100 volts over there. So they've got the amps on some sort of step-up transformer. So I guess that's a regulator of sorts, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, I generally come out of there and I go into the Furman. The Furman has a meter on it. Sometimes I use a Variac. So out of the step whatever transformer into the Variac, coming out of the Variac, then into my Furman with a meter, and then I can turn the big knob on the Variac and actually dial in the voltage to be right where it's supposed to be. Sometimes when you go to Europe and they use the step-down transformer, you'll be reading like 127 volts or something, like the power on the Furman. You're like, whoa, that's too hot, man. So you dial that back to like 117. And I just figure that's better for my amps and my whole rig to not be like, 10 volts, like over, I'm going to grab coffee. Talk amongst yourselves. Don't go away. And we're back. Oh, nobody left. Oh, nice. Same number of folks as when I went to get my coffee. What's the best way to get out of a rut? I've been playing for 15 plus years and suffering from lack of motivation. That's from Tommy. So there's a couple different things you can do. You can just vary up your listening. See if you can check out some players that you haven't before. Maybe it's like a style thing where you're just bored of hearing the same type of, like check out Tommy Emmanuel or something like that, or go back and listen to some Michael Hedges or something that's like totally different. And if you played a lot of electric guitar, maybe consider picking up the acoustic or vice versa. and just checking out a different style. And then there's so much instructional stuff out there these days, like picking up one of those courses, like I loved the Mateus Asado poetic soloing, I believe it's called, and I bought that, and it's great to sit there and just work. You can kill an hour or two just working on his phrasing, and because he's got such cool phrasing, he breaks all the licks down to be super slow, so you can definitely pick him up, and you can get some of that cool, stuff that he does into your playing. Or Laurie Basilio's course on what's it called? Hers is called fingerstyle soloing, I think. I think it's like she plays with her fingers a lot, and so drop the pick, and try some of playing solos with your fingers, and it's good, it's cool. So those are on Jam Track Central. So that's a couple. There's so much great like instructional stuff out there. It can be a little confusing, difficult. Like if you just go on YouTube and start. There's so many lessons, but yet it's kind of all scattered. Like, well, I don't know what I should work on. Then you end up doing nothing. One of those things. Something about the Jam Track Central thing, actually buying the course, opening it up, and then you have kind of a goal, like set kind of structure, which seems to work really well for me. So that would be a couple things I would recommend. Let's see here. Henrique says he watched the interview with snippets with Phil X on my channel and loved it. Yeah, that was a fun one, man. He's just on fire all the time. So it's like really easy to sit there with him and just go, you just start talking, and before you know it, an hour's passed, and he's so great. He's got such great spirit, that guy, high energy, and loves music, and he's just a positive guy too. I like him as a person a lot. He's Canadian, so hey, gotta like him. Technical Ecstasy says, for an aspiring guitar player, is there anything in my experience that one should focus on when practicing to be more musical, short of actually playing in a band? Timing and vibrato and bending in tune, or accuracy, bending in tune. Let's say really getting your vibrato together, phrasing, musical things. Like technique is great, but being vocal on the guitar basically and accurate. Practicing with a metronome, being able to play really on the beat, or just a little behind the beat, or pushing just a little bit in front of the beat, and have control over that. Those are a bunch of things that you can practice on your own. That then, when you get into a band, are really, really useful. Reverb pedals with a hold function that I like. What has a hold function? God, I can't think of one right now, to tell you the truth. Does the Hall of Fame doesn't have that, right? I just tried a reverb pedal that has a hold function. Sorry, I'm spacing on it. I can't remember though. I don't know if I can be very helpful in that. I never do that myself, so. Let's see here. Traverse City, Michigan's in the house. John. Recommend a good baritone electric guitar. Yeah, you're saying the Dan Electros look cool. That was what I was going to say. I mean, you kind of need to look no further, really. The Danos are, for 12 strings and baritones and all those kind of, slightly esoteric things that you don't necessarily need all the time. I would say look to the Dan Electros, or the Squier Fender stuff, like the Leo. Actually, if Leo's still here, I'm not sure if he is, but he picked up maybe he can tell us in the chat about his. He has it looks like I believe it's like a gray to black sunburst is what I'm remembering, and it's one of those sort of Fender bass sixes. It's really a baritone, I think, but it's a Squier one, so it's probably only a few $100. And he really likes it, and he did a bunch of tracks with that. So I would look at the Danos and the inexpensive Fenders. Fun thoughts or insight into Eddie Van Halen or Eric Johnson both using Echoplex into a 68 plexi and getting wildly different tones. Well, Eric sets up his amps so different than Eddie, but the Echoplex into a plexi is it's a classic sound. I mean, Joe Walsh used to use them into dirty amps too, and obviously Jimmy Page. It just works. You can make an Echoplex work into something about the way that the preamp in it. It sounds amazing, pushing the front end of an amp, as well as the when you're blending in the delay, the echo volume or whatever. It's just real easy on an Echoplex, even with a dirty amp. Alrighty. Christopher says, I like hearing your thoughts on tube. I would like, I think, hearing your thoughts on tube amps with attenuators versus modelers with powered cabinets. I like the look and feel of big amps, but never need all that sound. Well, there's this new, I did see that new Line 6 cabinet. Did you see that powered cabinet they have? Looks pretty interesting. They're making a cabinet now that's got a full range speaker in it, but that has speaker modeling. So like you can make that full range speaker sound like a greenback or like a V30, that type of thing. But it's different than IRs. Then there's also IR capability in them, so you could just use it as a full range cabinet and load impulse responses right into the cabinet. And that's pretty cool, and it kind of opens up some possibilities for using like big heads with reactive loads or load boxes, and then plugging it into like that 112 full range cabinet, and now having like IRs in there. Now you can, you could conceivably, that would be a way you could take a plexi to a gig or something and have that big amp tone loaded down, now going into a powered cabinet with an IR. I've never tried that. I mean, that would be an interesting rig. So those new little Line 6 cabs look interesting. I have to get one to try with some of these ideas. It kind of opens up a whole world for folks with reactive load boxes and that kind of thing. But that's not really your question. You're saying tube amps with attenuators versus modeled with powered cabinets. Well, my favorite attenuator isn't really an attenuator. It's the reamp type of situation, which is the Fryette Power Station. He made a great piece of gear. It's for $600 I think it is, or $699, $599. It's a reactive load box with a 50 watt relatively flat tube power amp in it to reamp the signal, and that thing works great. It sounds great with non-master volume amps, and you can use it with low power amps or high power amps, and basically you just dial it into whatever volume you want, because you got that clean 50 watt power amp in there, and it's got an effects loop, so you can add effects to your plexi or whatever you got. So that's like a no-brainer. And you're asking what are my thoughts on it versus modelers with powered cabinets. Well, this Line 6 thing might be different. They might have made something that's really great. I have to try it. I don't know. But the running modeler into a QSC powered full range PA style speaker or whatever never really, it just doesn't really float my boat. I don't know why. I do know why. It's because you're trying to recreate a live on-stage feel of something that there's something about a 412 cabinet or 212 cabinet or whatever with a guitar amp that just has a certain sound and the way it reacts with the room. And to me, the full range things just don't sound like that. I don't know why. Now, I don't mind using the modeler stuff with just in-ears and stage wedges, and kind of letting it be what it is, which is a sort of a approximation of another sound. And that's how I've always kind of approached that, rather than I need to make it feel exactly like my 412. Like if I want to do that, I'll just use a real amp. So, but that Line 6 cabinet, I don't know. I haven't tried it yet, and it seems like it's a real portable solution to, if it does work, maybe that's a new way to do things that is pretty cool. How's the record coming? Good. I mean, I'm just close to finishing, so I gotta button it up within the next 3 weeks here, so I'll get it done. Let's see here. Jason says loves the Thornbuckers he put into a 2003 Les Paul Classic. Volume knob still has that annoying jump from off to on. Did you change out the stock volume knobs on a Gibson? Yeah, I would. On a 2003 Classic, they're probably the 300K pots. Mm. And they're going to be linear taper, and you want audio taper. So yeah, look into pots from, get a good CTS, audio taper, or maybe those new Dunlop super pots or something like that. Make sure they're 500K. And and change out the just you can get a whole wiring harness from different companies and then make these kind of like pre-wired harnesses for you have to make sure you get the right one because they're different for Gibson historic guitars than they are for Gibson USA guitars, and that's because of the length of the shaft of the pot. It has to be different depending on whether it's a custom shop guitar or a USA guitar. I don't know why, but they're different spec. I don't know if the top's thicker on one or than the other or what, but anyway, yes. Long story short, change out the pots on your classic to get the most out of your guitar. I don't know why they used to put those 300K pots in those guitars, and they suck top end, and they just suck. Let's just say that. Let's see here. You once recommended to look up Chelsea Wolfe, and you became a fan of her music. That's Sumido. Any other suggestion? I just heard this band called the Velveteers. That sounds really cool to me on Instagram. So that's my suggestion for this week. It's just cool. It's a guy and a girl. The girl plays like I believe she plays baritone guitar most of the time. It's just kind of really badass. Cool music. And then my other one is, of course, if you've never checked out Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, they're like my favorite band. So check them out. BRMC. Thoughts on throwback pickups? I tried them. I wasn't like completely knocked out, but I'm not like an expert. I've only tried one guitar with a set of them, and I thought they sounded kind of a little dark to me. They weren't as open as I liked my PAFs. But maybe they got different models that I could try and stuff. Might have just been one set. I was interested in their story on their website with the old Gibson, what are they called, Leeson or something machines that they have, that they got, original winders and stuff. It's cool. History. Christopher says, thank you for giving us your time and this opportunity to ask you questions. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Thanks for being here with me. And I'm glad the stream seems to be working kick-ass today with no internet problems, like last week. Rodrigo says, hey Pete, can the Thornbuckers do metal? I mean, sure, if with the right amp and pedals. If you really, sometimes higher output or Alnico 5 pickups or even ceramic magnet pickups for really, if you're just playing distorted all the time and stuff and you want a certain sound, they can be the right thing. Alnico 5 magnets, for example, are more aggressive in the low end and top end. They're a little bit teethier than the Thornbucker Plus, which is a little bit warmer on the top end. That's what I designed it for, kind of more like to be a little smoother in the high notes. But maybe that's not what you want if you're playing metal, So, just depends. Let's see here. David says, love the Kelly Reverb's tone. Would I consider doing it in one of my In the Zone videos? Yeah, I could. I mean, to tell you the truth, that original Kelly demo video I did is pretty much like I'm using it all the way across the spectrum of the amp, all the way from clean through dirty with the mid-boost engaged. So I would just check out that original, the demo I did of it, which I feel like is pretty comprehensive. And any thoughts on the high watt DR103? They're amazing. I mean, just real cool amps. I always think of them as the British Fender. I don't know, like a little cleaner, stout, but distinctly British still. They sound great. I'd love to get an old high watt, like a 50 watt. Let's see. Have I heard about the new Headrush powered full range cabinet? I have not. Sorry, I don't know about that one. How often do I change strings? I begrudgingly do it when the strings go dead, and I just go, this set sucks. Did it this week on my old Strat because I was making a video for this guy, the JHS Bonsai, and it was cool, by the way. This pedal, you guys seen this? Seen my video for this? It's pretty great. It's got a whole bunch of different tube screamer circuits in it, starting from the OD1 through the 808, TS9, and then some different modded style variations, including a Keeley mod and one from Poland, which sounds great. TS10, Keeley's own, JHS's own mod. Really nice pedal. So I enjoyed making the video for this. But yeah, anyways, the strings on my Strat were so dead that I was just like, all right, I got to change them. can't, can't make a pedal video with shitty strings, or it just sounds bad. Eric uses a fuzz face into his Marshall. I don't think Eddie did that. No, I don't think Eddie ever used a fuzz face. But does Eric use the fuzz face all the time into the Marshall? I'm not sure about that. Yeah. And he also plays it, it's a lot darker the way he dials in those Marshalls. Jay Frocon says he got the UA aux. He likes what it does for recording a lot of parameters, but it seems like it changes what my Marshall plus pedals does in a live situation. So you mean, are you using the attenuator in it? I found the attenuator in it, it sounds similar to other attenuators I've tried, which is to say that, yeah, it seems to, slightly change the tone of the amp. It does the job, but like I say, there's something about attenuating an amp where you're still sending signal through to the speaker. So you're using like a passive attenuator where it's sucking some juice off the amp and then it's attempting to still send the signal through to the cabinet. Versus completely loading down the amp and then reamping like the Fryette does, like I say, and then sending that signal. There's something about the passive attenuator sucking the juice and then sending some of the signal through to the speaker where the tone's changing. And I talked a little bit about this with Sir, and he was saying that he feels like it's the most difficult thing to do, maintaining that sort of reactive relationship between the amplifier and the speaker cabinet when you're interrupting it in the middle with the attenuator. It's a very difficult thing, and I don't know that anybody's ever achieved a true transparent attenuator doing it that way. Whereas with the load, you're loading the amp all the way down. You've got this kind of reactive load, but it's not attempting to then pass signal through to a speaker and constantly be pushing back and forth with the output transformer and all that. It's just like this fixed, well, it's reactive, but it's, you know what I mean? And technically I can't quite describe it, but Sir would be able to better than me. But then when you're reamping with the power amp, it's like, for some reason, that just works better as far as retaining the sound. So with the aux, I tried the attenuator with the cabinet, and I heard some of the same qualities, I would say. That, when using it as an attenuator, there's a slight, there's like a mid-range thing where it sounds a little different than, so it's, it works good though. So it's, it just might change the sound a little bit. The way I'm using the aux is in the studio as a load, and for that I'm loving the shit out of it. Just using a load box with the iPad and all the parameters and the effects and stuff, and works great. What's the best sounding stacked or rails telly bridge pickup I have tried? For a rails pickup, I would probably say what the hell's the one that was in the Danny Gatton guitars? You know the ones I mean. You guys know. I'm forgetting the name of it. I can't remember what they're called now. In my old age, it'll come to me. But whatever was in the Danny Gatton model, tellies, those are cool, and those have been around since the '80s for a rails pickup. Pretty neat. Stacked. I'm not really a fan of stacked. It's never the same as a true single coil. Neither is a rails, but something with the rails is so different that they're not even trying to exactly do the same thing. Was it Barton? Was that the name of the pickups? I think. That sounded cool to me, but rather than using a stacked or a rail style pickup, I would say use a traditional telly style pickup and then use something like the Illich noiseless system, or the Sir. I'm not even sure if Sir offers the SSC silent coil or not as an aftermarket thing, but the Illich, I know you can get like that, and that works great. As far as staying noiseless goes, I don't know if you want to go through with that sort of hassle or not, but it definitely works. And then it'll sound like a true telly pickup. Fourth time's a charm. How do I feel about preamp pedals? Tried Kingsley. I have not tried the Kingsley. That's from Dose 160. I have not tried the Kingsley pedal. Preamp pedals, I have this one right here. That's essentially what this is. I mean, this is like an amp in a pedal. So I would check. This one's pretty great, for that. I plugged this into the flat power amp, and they made this to be a, you know, a full-on preamp pedal, and also preamp the front end of an amp, and then kind of work with whatever amp. So that one's good. What other preamp pedals? There's that one I tried, the Sherlock, and it was cool in a very Soldano-ish kind of way, full EQ and 2 channels and the whole 9 yards, you know. But the Kingsley I haven't tried. Okay. Jay Frocon says he uses boost to drive the amp, but the aux seems to not like it. Not a great tone. What happens? Is it too MIDI? I'm just curious. But if I just push the preamp without a boost, it sounds great. Opinions? Yeah, what kind of boost are you using, and what's the sound that you don't like? Tell me what it's doing, and I'll see if I can be helpful. Have I used the Line 6 Helix native plugin? I have not yet, and I have an install for it, and I have to just do it. This is something I haven't got around to doing yet. Assuming it sounds great and exactly like the regular Helix, since it's just DSP stuff. But can we hear a teaser of the tune? It'll be out in 3 weeks. I want you to hear the thing finished. The law says in terms of bass response, fullness, and resonance, 112 or 412. Well, 412, I would say. But a 112 can be a great thing. They record beautifully. Have I heard of Ranger Effects Reverb X or Echo X? I have not. I don't know that company. If I could play with any artist, living or past, who would you most want to jam with? Well, Paul McCartney, before I even finished the sentence, came to mind. Just a Beatle. I'd probably be scared shitless, but I guess just, wouldn't that be amazing? To just jam with a Beatle? Like, where it all sort of started, for me, anyway. Or maybe like Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey or something. Where it all kind of began, you know. Yeah. So, maybe Eddie. Which has sort of happened, but we won't talk about that. But it sort of did happen once, which was a thrill. How often do you treat the fretboard of your guitar with oil? Rarely, if ever. I don't really. I probably should more, especially rosewood. Sometimes I look at the rosewood boards, it's like, damn, it's getting dry. Can a split humbucker and a Strat style guitar sound Stratty? I think they work in my guitar. I use a split neck position quite a bit in my PT Signature guitar, which is right here. Oops, there it is. So when this is all the way up, that's the split humbucker, and it sounds great to me, and I use it a lot. It's a low output kind of thing because the pickup's just PAF strength, and so it's probably like a 5K single coil or something at that point, real low output, but it sounds right. I mean, you know, when I show people, they're generally like, damn, you need a lot of tones out of that guitar. I mean, the number 4 position 2 on the switch, where it's like the 2 inside coils of the pickups, has this great single coil quacky thing. Doesn't bother me at all. Mike says he's happy he finally caught this live. Nice to have you here, Mike. 361 people online. That's great. So we'll go another 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Martin says, what amps and guitar sounds do I think fit best for creamback versus greenback? I am looking to use a 112 cabinet. The creamback M is a fairly mid-range forward sound to me, more so than even a greenback. It's got this mid-range, and the M isn't my favorite speaker, but strangely I like the IRs of it that Celestion made. It's one of my favorites, but it's got a lot of full mids. When I've heard them in person too, kind of just a lot of mids. Then the greenback, is a thing, and then the creamback H, which is the heavier magnet version, is a really, really good sounding speaker to me. It's not greenback necessarily, it's more like a G12H30, but I like it almost more than most G12H30s I've tried. It's got a real balanced, lots of low end, mids, sparkly highs, everything seems in balance, and that's why we chose it actually for the PT 100 212 cabinet, because it was just like, this is a great all round speaker. It's all there, clean sounds, dirty sounds, really really terrific. So you're saying in a 112, that might even be in a 112. It's got a fairly high power handling too. It's a 75 watt speaker. So I would check out the Creamback H in a 112. And it's just a really good, versatile, great sounding speaker. Roll Camp says he can't wait to hear my new project. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Want to upgrade the pickups in an HSS Mexican Strat. Any recommendations? Thornbuckers. My favorite, and a lot of people have done this, but they do this, this, like get a Thornbucker Plus or Thornbucker for the bridge, and then two Sir singles, like two MLs or two V60 LPs, and you can't go wrong. It's just a killer setup. I've been using it for years with the V60 LPs and the one humbucker in the bridge, and it's great. You want a real versatile guitar, then put the push-pull on the tone pot for series parallel for that bridge pickup, and you've got a great gigging machine guitar then. Let's see here. Mr. Mata says Strymon Lex or Rotatron or Pigtronics. What's the best in my opinion? Rotary sounds. I like all of those, to be honest. Strymon Lex, I like the Mobius. The Rototron from Pigtronics is terrific. I made a video of that pedal if you'd like to hear it as well. And so I don't know. I've never directly A/B'd them. The other one to consider is the I'm not going to remember the name of it. But there's a what is the name? It starts with a V. It's another rotary pedal that I did a demo of. Maybe somebody can chime in. It's the kind of a gray pedal with 5 knobs across the top, and really really good sounding Leslie simulator, and I can't remember the name. Again, I'll try and remember and then let you guys know. But anyway, you got to just listen to the demos and try and compare them if you can. I could use any of those and probably be happy. I really like actually the rotary sound in the H9 as well, so don't discount that. I've gotten a great Leslie sound out of that. And that's what I used last time I played with Chris. Actually, I used on Say Hello to Heaven, and it sounded great. Just the rotary sound in the H9, terrific. They did a really nice job on that particular algorithm. Echo Park guitars. I've tried those a little bit. They're nice. That guy seems to be doing quite well. This was 5 years ago that I checked out his guitars once. But I don't know much more about them. He's also doing those NARB amps, right? Which are he's making them in Detroit, and they're like that other brand name that Marshall used. I don't really understand the NARB, but he's got that name now, and he's producing sort of plexi style amps and stuff. The Echo Park guy using that NARB name. Do I ever run effects pedals in parallel as opposed to series? Sir is in the house, maybe? I don't know. Just gonna see if he's here. Not sure if he is or not. Are you in my chat? Be nice if he was here. If you're here, John, hello. Effects pedals in parallel. So the RJM switcher pedal board switcher, it offers the ability to, it's got 4 stereo loops in it, I think, and when you put the pedals in the stereo loops, you can then choose, and I think you can choose per preset whether those loops are in series or parallel. So that's pretty cool, and it's a great thing because then you can, I don't do it generally, so you're asking if I've ever done it. I don't really do it. I wish I could sometimes. But it's a kind of a thing where you sort of have to pick with most pedal board switchers and most board configurations whether you're going to do it or not, right? And if you're going to do it, then you kind of need to use a mixer of some sort, and that's where the RJM is great because it allows you to do that within the switcher. And for those out there that don't know, the advantage to running
effects in parallel is that you're running them as opposed to into one another. So let's say you're running a delay into a reverb, and now you're kind of piling the delay into the reverb and they get more washy and stuff like that. Whereas if you run the delay and the reverb in parallel, you're not, they're each getting affected separately, and your delay is not getting reverbed after the fact, if that makes sense. So as you can imagine, the delay tails out very cleanly and the reverb tails out, and you kind of hear the effects more distinctly. And so it can be a good thing for certain sounds, and especially if you want those things to stay very, like, less soupy. So that would be when you'd want to run stuff in parallel. Also, it's just, you've always, of course, the big advantage I haven't talked about is if you're using effects in parallel, that usually means you're running them 100% wet, and you're keeping your dry tone intact. So some of your signals getting passed through, that dry tone getting passed through sort of without getting converted through an A to D converter. You're getting that little bit extra delay every time you run through A to D conversion, each consecutive pedal, and your dry tone is being affected by. So, if you can imagine just running effects in parallel and keeping some of the dry signal in the mix, it's your dry signal stays real intact and powerful and punchy, and then the effects stay cleaner. So certain sounds, though, you might want to be running them in series and have that kind of more soupy delay reverb thing. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. As a musician, almost always on the road or in studio, do you feel off from the outside world sometimes? That's such a good question. That's from Dom. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, you do. And the best musicians that I've worked with and the most sort of talented and the ones that have gone the furthest in their careers, they tend to be pretty isolated in the studio, and they don't, a lot of them, they just don't have much of a social life, and it's a sacrifice. Like, you don't, for the road, for sure. I mean, it's like institutional living. You get out with your crew out there and they become your friends and family, and you're touring with them constantly, and you're away, you're out of town, so you're not experiencing whatever's at home, and you're in this cycle of wake up, hotel, shower, sound check, go to the gig, say hi to everybody, whatever, dinner, pre-gig thing, hang out, go do the gig, lots of people and this energy, and you're like, ooh, you're a rock star for a minute or whatever. You get off stage and then meet and greet, or hang out and party or not, have a couple drinks, whatever, get on the bus, and hang out with your 12 people on a 45-foot bus, and eventually go into that bunk and fall asleep, go into a hotel at some point and wake up and do it all again. And it becomes this institutional kind of thing, which feels anywhere from, on the shitty end, like, can be really boring but exhilarating for the 2 hours that you're on stage, or it can be frustrating if you're, that family's weird that you're on the road with, or on the good end, it can be all the way through to just an amazing experience of like, wow, you feel like you're on a team with your friends and you're all in it to win it, all together, and it's like this great family feeling or something like that. And then one day that stops because every tour ends, and then you come home and you're like staring at the wall, like, what do I do with myself today? Because it's a little bit like any institutional kind of, like, you've been to boarding school or prison or you know what I mean? Like, it's like you get out of like that situation. Now you're back in reality. You're at home, and you're like, everything just stopped. You were in some sort of, I use the prison now, but I mean, that's got to be like, imagine that. Like, imagine going away to jail or whatever for like years, and then you get out all of a sudden. You're like, people get into a routine no matter what, that it's like you get into routine, and you get out of that routine and it really throws you off. So yeah, it's a little weird, like so you're saying from the outside world, then when you throw yourself back in that outside world, it's a little, for sure, it takes an adjustment. Studio can be similar, where you get into this, like, just constantly go, because I love those, like, this is the magic of playing music for a living, is I remember making my first record when I got first record deal, and we got signed, and I spent the next 6 weeks, pre-production in the studio making the album, and I was there from the moment I woke up until I was so tired I just had to go home and fall into bed, and I did that for like 6 weeks, and I remember saying to my buddy Frank at the end of it, like, dude, we did this like 12 to 14 hours a day, like every day, but I just said like I wouldn't have been anywhere else. Like, there's nowhere else in the world I would have rather been, and that's incredible. Like, and I don't ever take that for granted. Doing something you love, and you're working your ass off, and you're just working really hard and in it. But that's exactly where you want to be. It's a really magic thing, but it does get like you do divorce yourself from the world a little bit. Now I don't have kids, and so it's like I got a kind of a weird life, like in a way. I remember hearing recently, it was the fella from Porcupine Tree, forgetting his name now, but I read an interview with him, amazing, Stephen Wilson, right? And he was talking about how he made this conscious decision to not have a family in order to be a person that's very creative and have a high creative output and focus his life and devote his life to playing music. And I was like, wow, that's heavy. Like, because you when you're younger, you maybe think, well, I can do it all, but I'm just not going to have kids yet or not have a family or whatever, I'm just going to, eventually I'll get to that when I have time. But like he actually made this decision, like, I'm not going to do that, and I'm just going to play my guitar and play music. And that, to me, it was like, it's kind of like melancholy and weird. Not weird, not like I'm not criticizing his choice. It's just like it's a weird realization to come to just go, well, I guess I'm just gonna shut myself off from that idea, and just play music and devote 100% of my time to it. It's weird, like life path, strange. But the older you get, the more it starts to come into focus, and you're like, I'm making these decisions to spend all this time on music and touring or whatever, and not doing these other things, because there's only so many hours in the day. Let's see. Dave says he's recording his first album, would like to tour three-piece original rock band. Is there any chance that a new band can tour and make a living in this current environment? Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, bands are making, the thing is, like, you can make your record and then put it out. Now, it's like you're not probably going to make a hell of a lot of money selling music, because that just doesn't happen anymore. So the way that bands are making money is by touring. So, but you have to figure out how to get to that point where you can get enough people interested in your music to come to your shows and then buy T-shirts and stuff like that, because that's where bands are making their money. So it can be done. The thing, Dave, is there's like a whole bunch of different ways to make money playing music these days. And you have to explore all of those avenues, I think. So, be it maybe you get corporate sponsorship for your tour of some sort, or maybe, like Misha from Periphery recently did that whole, there was a whole article, interview with him where he was talking about how making his signature pedal or amps or things like that, or how he makes money now, and the touring's just for fun, kind of, because they sort of break even on tours, but they want to play music, but they sort of make music for the love of it and do it when they can, and then they make money doing all this other stuff, and that's kind of how it is. You just have to sort of, you eke together this weird living of like trying to, income from different sources and things. It used to be easier. I mean, in a way it was, but it was easier and harder. Now it's like, it's almost like you just have to be creative, and you can come up with your own way of doing it. And if you come up with the most creative way, then it's like, hey, we got this, check it out. Like, we got this interesting career where we're garnering income from these different sources. It used to be like, okay, well, the record labels selling albums, that was the way that you did it, guarantees or shows, and, very sort of, it was sort of defined and kind of, I said, institutionalized before. It was like an institution, you followed that business model. And now it's like all bets are off. People are doing all kinds of different stuff. And, I mean, people are making, thousands of dollars for putting a post on Instagram with a photo of something. So, you know what I mean? It's like it's the Wild West right now when it comes to all this stuff. Pedalboard demo video 3. I know, you're right. I'm supposed to do that. That's from Adam. My goal was to record a song for the record using the board and turn it into a pedalboard video. So, okay, I will try and do that. Yeah, I can pick one of these last few tunes and try and do it utilizing the board and just sort of show it to the best of my ability. Yeah. Okay. I'll get on it. Okay. Once again, there's only so many hours in the day. And when somebody sends you a pedal like this, you're like, oh my God. And then to think about, oh yeah, but I need to make that other video. And then there's those other, and then my brain just kind of, and melts out of my ears. Have I given much thought to power conditioners? Gripes, likes, and or wants. It's kind of a utility product that, like I say, I use the Furman. I don't really have, my Furman's great. Just has like 5 outlets on it or whatever and has a meter. And it seems cool. Have I tried out any Bogners? Yeah, I used to have an Ecstasy. It's from Eddie Van Hendricks. I used to have an Ecstasy head in the 90s for a while. So yeah, I owned an Ecstasy and used it for a little while. Helios I have not tried. Big fan of the pedals. I'm all cool with amps these days because of Sir and stuff and my association with them. But yeah, the tone he generally sort of gravitates towards, which is more fuller low mids and stuff, isn't really my thing. I like a little bit leaner, kind of more traditional Marshall voicing for my dirty stuff. Yeah. But I like Reinhold, and like I say, I like the pedals, and it's always good to see him and stuff like that, and we have a good rapport. So, let's see here. Thinking about buying a used Music Man Axis, says Fabio. What are my thoughts on those? Great. High quality. Terrific. Thinking about getting, this is Brett, thinking about getting a 212 cabinet for using with Marshall heads. Suggestions on speakers. I would suggest there's 2 different suggestions I would make, which is what I used. I really like the Creamback H, are a really nice speaker for a 212. The other one that I would recommend are the Neo Creambacks. They're a 50-watt speaker. They're Neo speaker, so they're real light, and they sound like an awesome greenback. And those are actually, I want to try some of those for some new amp stuff that we have coming. So the Neo Creambacks from Celestion, check those. At 50 watts, they fairly decent power handling, and I just want to try them in a 212. But they just sound like a terrific greenback, like a worn-in, like a better greenback actually. Loving my new B&G Stepsister, says John. Have I had a chance to play one of those? No, I've seen the ads on YouTube, and I'm like, what is this company that kind of came out of nowhere? Does anybody know anything about those B&G guitars? I was almost like, they made these really beautiful videos, and I was like, is this country or is this company kind of a sham or something? But I guess not, I didn't know what the deal was with them. It just seems like they popped out of nowhere and were making guitars like they'd made guitars for years. Like that was kind of the feel they were giving you in the ads, and I was like, I've never heard of this guitar company. So I was curious if they were like making them overseas or something. I don't know. But I could be way off. I think I'm going to use the HX Effects. He likes the form factor. That's from Bill Smith. I think it's great. Only got to use it for one day for about 6 hours where I made some presets for them, but it was real easy to get into and familiar sounds, because I've got a Helix. And I thought it sounded great with the PT100. The songs I write for the pedal demos are awesome. Just wondered if there was some drive pedals you can go back and listen to and say, wow, that really sounded great. That was from Tim. Yeah, so the ones that come to mind recently are the, Little Brute drive. That was a really, really good sounding one. The Little Riot pedal sounds great too. They're similar, really terrific sounding drives. The ones that really stick in my mind are probably the, in the last few years are the Lagrange, and the Sur Eclipse is really, really nice as well. What else? From pedal videos that I've made. I mean, the Plexitone is a kind of an old sleeper. Always really, really good pedal. Let's see here. Somebody's asking where I live. I'm not telling you. I'm an LA guy. I live in LA now. Forever. I have. Looking forward to your take on the Moore radar pedal. Yeah, it seems to work great. I just haven't been able to load my own IRs into it, but I'll work on that this week. I got to get that one done. Really cool pedal though. Seems great. Am I liking my MacMull Heartbreaker? Anything unique or better than the U.S. builders? It's a great sounding guitar. It's got a ton of tone. The MacMull guitar, it does have like this wood tone that comes through the pickups that you hear in the videos. People always hear it and they go, "That guitar's super cool." And it's kind of like my 335, where it's got this real personality that seems to shine through in a really great way. Sir says, "Hey, what happened to the lag?" So Sir is here. He misses it, he says. John, I got my internet sorted out. Let's see here. I must be way back in the chat because he asked me ages ago. Oh, he says, yes, he's here. So what does creamback... Damn it, John. He was going to make a creamback joke that I'm not going to repeat. What a troublemaker. Alrighty. Let's see here. Looks like you need to hire a sound guy to operate that pedal. I know, right? That's a lot of stuff. But I did figure it out yesterday. I was intimidated at first as well, but 4 hours later, I have it all figured out. I do. Origin devices for recording also direct into a channel strip. Well, it's this pedal you can use they designed it to basically work into just about any amplifier. So they made it to work into the front of a Vox or an AC, like an AC30 or a blackface Fender, bright switch on or off, or Marshall or whatever. And then there's different switches that allow you to tune it for the front end of whatever your amp is. So they're kind of trying to make a pedal that works into just about any amp. You can also use it as a preamp right into a power amp. So there's a switch right here that says power amp. You just flip that over, and now it re-EQs the pedal to kind of work into a flat sound. So, and then there's some more controls down here that allow you to even fine-tune more stuff. So it's all the stuff is basically on this pedal. Beyond these controls, all this other stuff is what allows you to tailor it to whatever you're going to plug it into. So theoretically, with what you've got, if you've got a fixed kind of system, you always play a deluxe reverb or whatever. Once you find the right setting for all this stuff, you're not going to change it. You're only going to change the knobs for the particular, and then you can think of these almost like amp controls with two separate sides. Hope that makes sense. But if you find yourself in different gigging situations where one day you've got, say, an AC30 and the next day you got a blackface Fender you got to plug into, that's what these switches and knobs do. You could find your favorite settings for whatever, and then I guess you could, take a photograph or write down the settings or whatever. So if you were gigging and using different amps, you could just reference your notes or whatever and set the pedal up for. That's the idea. John's just toying with me. He's enjoying toying with me. Yeah, Chris says, "Are you trolling, John, sir?" He's totally trolling. John hates internet trolls, except when he's one. Such a troublemaker. Good to have you here, John. Always. Any cool experiences on working with solid state amps? Not really. I'm a 2-amp guy, but no, I do remember a few good ones. The original Blues Cube Roland, those sounded pretty good for a cheap solid state amp to me. And I know people say good things about those Katanas and stuff, which are modeling amps. But the Blues Cubes were not modeling amps, were they? They were like the ones that were out in the 90s. They were just solid state amps. They sounded good. I even thought the original PV, I'll say it, the original trans tube amps that came out, I thought they sounded pretty good. My memory of them is yeah, I could work with that. That's a usable sound. Sir says that pedal makes him dizzy. Yeah, it's pretty heady, but once I got into it, I was able to make it work and get actually some great sounds out of it. You guys will see. I'll put up a video this week for it. It's a cool pedal for sure.
Mark says he has a Friedman Pink Taco and he's looking for a second amp for stereo or wet dry. Thinking about an AC-15. Yeah, this could be a really good combo, I would think. I mean, kind of similar to this setup I was using at TC last week, where I was using an old 65 AC-30 and a JMP together. Running a Marshall sound and a Voxy sound together was great. It's the Dean DeLeo combo. It's a cool tone. Any videos on getting UAD amp tones with the new release of the Buxom Betty? I could do that. I would probably get into that, yeah, because I need to make some more videos for UA for sure. I'm actually going to do a video for UA in about a week where I'm recording drums, because I got a new Apollo 8P with the 8 preamps in it that I haven't set up yet in my studio, but I want to take my laptop to my studio space and mic up a kit and play with my buddy Kurt Pescara and knock out a track where I'm kind of playing along live to him, and I'll use one of the plug-in amps in UA, play in the room with him, and we'll mic up the kit and just kind of record a track that way. It should be fun. Should be really fun. Let's see. John wants to buy a Sur guitar. You've got a customer here, John. And Ben says he wants to get one as well. And let's see. John says it's an amazing day. I haven't been outside. I would like to get outside. I'm going to do that in a few minutes. Actually, yeah, I got to run pretty quick, you guys. 8 more minutes, and then I'm going to jet at 1 so that I can make it to a farmer's market today. Wise Guy says he'd be afraid to have a pedal like the Origin on the board and have some drunken idiot spill beer all over it. I can't worry about stuff like that. It's built pretty solid. I'd say you just dry it out. Probably sound better after all that beer. Classic T Antique and SL67, says Ben, coming his way, plus a Sur reactive load. He's a good customer, John. Michael's asking again how I would solo over whipping post. I'm not sure, but I made a reminder to check in my on Wednesday. I'm going to listen to whipping post, and then I'll come up with an answer for you if you come back next week. Have I tried Pedal Pedal Pal FX 800 grid? No, don't know that. Sorry. Audio is pretty low, says Alexis. Is it? It's a little late in the game for me to worry about it now, but I can crank it up for next week. Well, I'll crank it up right now. Just turn up the output on my microphone. Here you go. Here's a little more level. Check, check, check. There you go. It says it's almost clipping in UA console here, so I don't want to go too crazy. Okay, moving on. Last few questions here. Am I going to write a review on the Line 6 powered cab? I would. Oh, that's from John. Yeah, I'll hit up Matt, my buddy at Line 6, and ask him this week. I do want to check that out. Lando Music is saying he tried Lacquer Channel mastering a few years ago. That was the mastering place in Toronto. Somebody was asking me about mastering, and he says they were good. Yeah, they do a great job. They did a nice job on Dirty Town. Sounds good to me. Really good. I asked for one revision. They sent me it, and I wanted something a little different. I can't even remember what it was, and they said okay, and they did it again, and then it sounded perfect. Chris Ham says he watched about 30 seconds of the Coachella stream and had no idea who he was watching. Yeah, I know there's a whole bunch of bands on there that I've never heard of, but that's kids these days. They know about stuff we don't. Pretty good stream though, right? Like there's 3 channels of, it's like sponsored by T-Mobile or something. You can go on YouTube and watch the Coachella stream and see what's going on. It sounded really good, like really quality. It's like, oh, I can go out there. I don't have to be around all those hipsters. I can just watch it at home. I've never been to Coachella. Never been to Coachella. Never played it. Never been to it. Maybe someday. But ready. In today's valve manufacturing, what is my favorite brand of outlet valves? I think you mean output. Well, it's hard. John will attest to this, but the tubes are a problem these days. Just it gets to be harder and harder. They're just inconsistent, and you can have a great run at JJ's, and they'll be great for years or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what happened? Like, when the quality goes south of a certain batch or whatever, and it seems like they're failing. So as like an amp manufacturer, it's a nightmare because it's the one thing you don't really have control over, I guess. It's this component that just kind of sucks that you have to deal with and test and return a lot of, and so it's hard. I mean, tube amps is tough. Output tubes seems like, if you're talking about consistency, that I would say, I've got to say that probably the and not being an amp manufacturer, it's like, but I would say consistency and decent tone, probably the electroharmonic stuff has got to be the winner these days. Certainly with the Sovtech 5881 seems to be one of the most reliable and good sounding, if it's just a circuit's designed for it, output tubes, right? They seem like they're really reliable, as well as like the Electro-Harmonix EL34s and all that stuff. Now, we use the JJs in the Sur amps. That's what John's used for years, and he feels that with their testing that they do, because Sur tests them really rigorously, they don't have a lot of problems with them. But it seems like the Electro-Harmonix stuff is probably consistently, and there's a lot of offerings there. I mean, they make different versions of, stuff. I like their Sovtech long plate LPS 12AX7 as well, and the phase inverter of a Marshall. It sounds really good to me. I once tried a whole bunch of different ones, and those tubes, I didn't feel like, as far as NOS, like I was getting anything extra out of. And then in the preamp positions, I just use the Chinese tested 12AX7s, and they're high gain, and as long as they're quiet, because they can be kind of shitty, microphonics and noise and stuff. But if you find good ones, they sound good. Peter says, "Is Sur coming out with a small amp?" Yes. Long story short, yes. Yes. Let's see here. Brian is being a dick, so I'm not going to answer him. I don't know, Brian. Maybe you're just fucking around. But anyway, it was Brian McGuire. Brian McGuire, ladies and gentlemen, being silly. Based on your review, I downloaded the Mercurial Spark plugin, and it sounds great. I thought so too. I was really impressed. Never had heard of that company before, and that plugin is terrific. My first amp plugin. So how does it compare to other ones? It's great. I mean, I don't think you need to look any further if you want a good Marshall amp plugin. It sounds really terrific. Have I played a 67 Super Bass? I've played a 67 Super Lead. I don't think I've ever played a 67 Super Bass. I made a record with a 67 Super Lead though, so it was that was the first Plexi amp I ever really got to use extensively, and it sounded great. Killer. David says he loves the Kelly Reverb's tone. Would I consider doing it at one of my... Oh, I answered that already. John Sir says Adderall. Yeah, it's good stuff. Why not, This is my Adderall right here. Coffee. Anyway, David, you were saying the Kelly Reverb's tone you really like, and would I make a video on it? The original Kelly demo I did, that amp demo video I did for it, I would consider that to be an Amps in the Zone video. I mean, I really played through it extensively in that. So, yeah, check out that video from 2013 or 14 or something. Maybe 12. Can't remember. It was a long time ago. Riot versus Riot Reloaded. I like them both. Oh, the chat just skipped all the way to the end, but that's okay because I got to go anyway. So I'm just going to back up a little bit, and sorry if I've missed your question, guys. Have I ever considered high watt listening to Led Zeppelin? I love high watts. I do. I'd love to have an old one. I've got a nice old Marshall now. I'd love to get one. I'd love to get one great old high watt and a great AC30 original. This is just magic. Have I created an effects pedal with TC this week? No, but we made a whole bunch of tone prints for their pedals that they're putting out. I guess the deal with tone prints and artist tone prints was that you couldn't modify them. So you download an artist tone print, and then if you use the editor, you couldn't change the sounds of the artist ones beyond what you could do with the knobs on the pedal. But the ones that we made this week are going to be stock TC tone prints. It's like made by me and Tor, but you're going to be able to go in and tweak those. So we made them as kind of like starting points because they've got this new editor for the tone print stuff, and that's coming out. And so it's almost like in order to help introduce the new editor and stuff, we made a bunch of tone prints with every pedal. Almost every pedal. That's a tone print pedal. Steven says finally getting in a home recording, knows the 11 rack has been out for years, but it seems so simple to use and doesn't sound too bad. I would say that that's true. 11 rack, it's good. It's good if you're digging it and you basically like the sound and it seems to work well for you, then use that. Don't just use something else because it's newer or whatever. It's fine. Use it with Pro Tools. And is Dirty Town a play on words, like going down the dirt track? Dirty Town is what I called the part of every Japanese town that you would find, no matter whether it was Tokyo or the smallest little town. It always seems like there's a part of town where all the girls' bars are. If you've ever been to Japan, you'll know what a girls' bar is probably. But it's basically like I don't know. There's these parts of town that basically it's like organized crime, I think, and is largely responsible for running these places and stuff. But they're girls' bars. They're bars you go into and you pay girls to talk to you, essentially. And it's a part of the culture. I mean, like businessmen go to these places after work, and they sit there and have a couple drinks, and it's super weird, I guess. But it's a part of the, it's part of their cultural fabric at this point. It seems like these places, and it's definitely got to be. There's just some shady stuff going on there, beyond just that, I would say. But we don't really know, like, not being from there or whatever exactly what's happening. But anyway, whenever we would walk through and you'd be like, oh, I think we're in Dirty Town, like that part of that part of the town where it's just like the sort of underworld, slightly illicit stuff you could feel like was probably going on, as well as whatever was above board. So I just thought it was a funny little phrase we came up with. Dirty Town. Okay. Gotta go soon, you guys. Gotta get out of here, but just gonna answer a couple more things and then I'm done. That's cool. The Hoppo says, how many folks are playing while watching this? Always unplug my telly and noodle during Pete's streams. That's cool. I should do that too more. I know I don't play enough on this, but it just feels like then I'm not engaged if I'm taking off and playing. I guess I could do it more. I don't know. I missed the questions and stuff like that then. What's my favorite gear from the 80s that I've held on to? I would say probably Floyd Rose trims, or I have a Jackson that I got in 86 or 85 that I still have, that you guys never see, but I have it, and it's badass. Has that dog barking in the background ever been in the background of one of your songs? What dog? I don't hear it. I think you're hearing things, dude. Okay. Not seeing any more questions here, so... Oh, how about a Riot mini amp, Steve says. I guess that's for John. Updated album release date, still the same. I gotta finish it and get it out by the end of May. So, it's coming fast, but I'm gonna wrap it up in the next couple weeks here. Knock it out. I'm gonna do a lot of work this week. I'm about 2 tracks away from finishing, so I just gotta knock out 2 more and get all the mixes done and stuff. I can get it done. It's crazy, but I just have to work my ass off for the next couple weeks. No problem.
Johan asks John, sir, why don't you make tubes for your amps? The answer to that is it's incredibly complicated, and you need a lot of machinery, and it's a huge operation. And then once you gear up and tool up for all that tube manufacture, there's all kinds of environmental laws and stuff. I don't even know if it'd be possible to make tubes in California now with all the environmental regulations and stuff like that. It can be very difficult, and once you've got like it's incredibly expensive and difficult to set up. Plus, it requires a lot of knowledge, and then once you're set up, the number of tubes that you need to make for something like the guitar industry, which is relatively small, really, it just doesn't justify the cost of the setup. So I know people like Aspen Pittman from Groove Tubes and stuff. They've attempted over the years to maybe set up some sort of U.S. production of boutique style production of tubes, but I don't think it'll ever happen at this point. It just seems like the demand was probably greater 10 or 15 years ago, and it would have happened then if ever. And now it's like, people with modeling and stuff, I don't know. It's maybe deck chairs on the Titanic at this point. It's hard to say, but we'll keep it going as long as we can, right? We love tubes. Why are old guitars considered better? With progress, I'm sure the best are coming. That's Armand Noir. I'm sure Sir would agree with that. Old guitars, there's mojo and craftsmanship and old wood, all that good stuff. New guitars, there's advancements and new technology and stuff. So there's advantages to both, I guess. Do I use a dedicated buffer? My pedal board has a buffer in it. It's got the Friedman buffer because I use the buffer bay. Friedman buffer bay, so yeah, there's a buffer in it. Phil says I will never pay to talk to women. It's a yeah, I know. It's interest. You gotta go to different countries and you go to these places. You're like, well, things are just different, and it's a different. It's hard to explain beyond being there. You go, wow, that doesn't make sense to me. But a lot of things don't. But it's like different cultures are different. I don't know. It's a you just kind of take it all in and go, wow, that's different than what we do in our country. Okay. I could talk about that for ages, that whole situation and sort of cultural. Japan has some really interesting, twists. Let's put it that way. But I love it there. I do. I love it. John Sir says the Bella is like Chris Rock's Robitussin. Just pour some tussin on it, right? I know that bit. Break your arm, just pour some tussin on it. It does tweed to ultraphonic. And it does too. By the way, John, I got the Bella sitting right here, and I've been using it. If anybody checked out the video I did this week for the this guy, the JHS Bonsai, that was the Bella with the Strat. I got a great sound. Classic screamer into Fenderish situation going on. Would like to hear about Friedman guitars. Dave's been making guitars for a while. It's with Jackson Frover, so they're working together and making guitars and kind of things that Dave wants to see. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna go, you guys, but last question. Chris says he owns a pair of Adam A7X monitors. What advice regarding mixing on them? Are they hyped in the bass or mid-range? Well, I don't have the A7Xs, I just have the regular A7s. I don't think they're hyped. I think they're quite, there's a lot of clarity in the top end, and I love the mids on them. I can really just, the thing with the A7s is, and maybe this was just me getting used to them, but I find that that they, if I just mix on them exactly the way I think I should, then it translates. And that's what you want ultimately, right? You want something that you don't have to go, I always say this with NS10s, you had to mix, the guitars were biting your face off, and you could kind of maybe hear the bass, sort of, and that's when you knew the mix was right. That's the way NS10s were. With Adams, I can mix comfortably and just kind of mix exactly the way that I think the song is supposed to sound, and then it seems to always translate. So that's my honest opinion.
Somebody was asking if I know. Deer Creek was asking what do I think of Frog Leap's videos. That's Leo, and I love Leo and his videos. Yes, I'm a huge fan of Leo. Leo's my hero these days, actually. He's amazing. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna jet. I'm gonna go and go outside. Says Jennifer. You're right. I'm gonna do that. So you guys have a great rest of your Sunday. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you same time, same place next week. And thanks for being here. I appreciate it. See you later. See you, John. Take it easy.